Test. All right, we're live. Hi, everybody. Hope you're having a good first day here at Dreamforce. I've got a bit of feedback. Hopefully that's okay now. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. So this is the session on accessibility at Salesforce. There may be a few slides which look similar to the previous presentation by Fabienne. Thank you, Fabienne, for that talk, by the way. See if you can spot the similar ones. Okay, before we get going, please don't make any purchasing decisions on products and services that are not generally available. So please just don't make any purchasing decisions based on this talk. So my name is Richard Boardman. I'm a senior director in the UX engineering team, focusing on accessibility. And today I'm joined by Jesse Hausler, who is our principal accessibility specialist. Okay, so I'm going to give you a very brief intro on what accessibility is in case you're not familiar with it. Okay, so let's imagine there's a company called Headtrail Incorporated, and these are a couple of the employees. Yep, the company employs animals, Gary Goat and Olivia the Owl. Let's imagine it's Monday morning, and they arrive at the office and they discover that they have a new intranet portal. This is what it looks like. Gary logs onto his computer, and it has lots of big images showing the different tools that he can use in his day. Now it's Olivia's turn, and I forgot to mention one thing, and that is that Olivia is blind. She arrives at work and sits down at her computer, and she uses software called a screen reader, which basically reads out what the screen would be showing to a sighted user. That is if the site is built correctly. And this is a visual representation of what Olivia sees on the screen, and you can see there's just white boxes. So this website has not been built accessibly. If it had been built accessibly, she would see something like this. And one of the secrets to accessibility is providing alternative text for any image or visual element on the screen. Any visual element, of course, isn't accessible to somebody who's blind. And now, Olivia, using her screen reader, can step through the site by hitting the tab key. And if you look on the left there, where it says link email in the speech bubble, that's what is being read out by the screen reader for Olivia. So she can tab through the screen from email to calendar to finance and so on, and the site has been made accessible to her. And that is the goal of accessibility, to make sure people like Olivia are not excluded from using technology. So here's a definition. Accessibility is all about ensuring people with disabilities, whatever their disability, can perceive, understand, navigate, interact with, and contribute to any system, any technology. For us, it's web applications and mobile apps. So who benefits from accessibility? Everybody benefits from accessibility. Now, that's quite a claim. Let's dive into that. So first, let's consider people with disabilities. We have some stats here. You might recognize some of them from Fabienne's talk. They're very well known. So disabilities are more common than you think, and the one I want to draw attention to is the one there at the bottom. And that is that the population of people who are over 65 within the USA is about 1 in 7, and that's rapidly increasing. It's going to be about 1 in 4 by 2060. And that means that basically many of your end users are older, and older people tend to work later in life these days. So it's even more important to think about disabilities, because they're more common with older people. But as well as people with permanent disabilities such as blindness, there are also temporary and situational versions of those same disabilities. And our buddies at Microsoft Inclusive Design came up with these universal disability personas to illustrate this. So these are three levels of disability associated with touch, the ability to touch things. So on the left, this is what you probably think of when we talk about a disability. So this lady has only one arm. So obviously she has a disability. However, if you tomorrow accidentally break your arm, touch wood, you won't break your arm, but if you do, you're temporarily disabled as well. And when I was with my child this morning, I was holding him in my arms, and I was situationally disabled. And the point of these personas is just to illustrate that accessibility isn't just for people with permanent disabilities, it's actually for everybody. Here's a quick example. So this is a very beautifully designed wheelchair ramp. So it's, fundamentally designed for people using a wheelchair so they can access this I'm not sure what it is, possibly an art gallery. So just can anybody shout out in the audience other examples of people who also benefit from this, as well as people in wheelchairs? Nice and loud, because it's very noisy out there.
Stroller.
Somebody's yelled skateboarders. Yeah, so skateboarders, they're not wheelchair users, but they benefit from this.
Also heard a mother with a stroller.
What was that?
Somebody with a stroller.
Somebody with a stroller, yeah, if you have a pushchair, a stroller. People rolling suitcases. There are many, many examples of other people who benefit from this. So this is what accessibility is always about. So Salesforce. So Salesforce is fully committed to providing enterprise applications accessible to all individuals. If you go to Google and search for Salesforce accessibility, you'll find our accessibility page, which shows all our accessibility statements for our products to show you where we are with our current products. And this is fully in line with our core corporate value of equality, of course. Now, we're fully committed to accessibility, and we're here because we need you as well to join us in our commitment to accessibility. So we strive to provide an accessible platform on which you can develop, on which you can add your own components and code. And we need you to build accessibly on top of the platform. And I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Jesse, who's going to talk about some best practices that you can employ in building accessibly on Salesforce.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, so let's talk about some best practices that really anybody here, anybody building on the Salesforce platform can follow to make the products that you build accessible. So the first one is about inclusive design, right? Accessibility begins at the design level. And we have an example here about a user who is situationally disabled. And this gentleman, he works in the field. This is his work phone. It is covered in dust. The screen is shattered, and it's very bright and sunny. And he's trying to read the app, look at the instruction manual for how to fix, whatever it is he's out in the field to fix. So this is one of the first iterations of this particular application that we were building. And you can see everything is white. We have small fonts, not a lot of differentiation throughout the page. And when we took this out in the field to workers like that gentleman, they couldn't see. They didn't know what was on the screen. So let's go ahead to the after. And while it may not look like we have a lot of differences here, we made some of the callouts. We put a purple against the white. We increased the size of the text. We made it a lot bolder. This greatly helped that user. So that's one idea about inclusive design. And again, that's just the visual treatment. There's also a lot of things that we do at Salesforce to make sure that what is designed can be built to be accessible by the engineering teams. Which brings us to this next point, which is use Lightning components, right? The idea behind that is there's a lot of work you have to do to create an accessible interaction, right? So this is a screen grab of the specification to build an accessible menu. So don't worry about what's in there because you don't want to deal with that, right? We do this for you, right? So if you look at the Lightning Components site, when we provide a menu, it already does that, right? It has all of the keyboard accessibility, has everything already built in. Right, so here's two examples. One is talking about this component called Lightning Button Icon. But one of the biggest accessibility errors that we see when it comes to buttons are that when it's just an icon, let's say it's a trash can, you want to delete a record, it'll just visually look like a trash can, but inside the button it never says delete, or in this case, close the window. So we have built into Lightning Components our attributes that, just like this, alternative text, close window, and it will put it in there in such a way that a screen reader user will be able to hear it. A sighted user, a designer, won't have to look at it, but the information's there, and you don't have to do anything special because we do it for you. And then the next piece here, Lightning Input. In the previous talk, we saw a lot about labeling form fields. If you use Lightning Input, we have a label attribute, and then that will create the right association programmatically for you. Okay, so the third is about the Lightning Design System. So if for whatever reason you're not able to use Lightning Components, use the Lightning Design System when you create your own components. So if you go here, and this is getslds.com, for all of our components, we have accessible, valid HTML structure for everything. Headings, tables, lists, paragraphs. We have layout grids. We have everything you would ever need to make an accessible site. We also include accessibility guidance. So for all major interactive components, we're talking menus, combo boxes, tab sets, carousels, you name it. Beyond accessible semantic, we have keyboard interactions. We have expected markup. We tell you how to use JavaScript to toggle and alter and change the ARIA roles throughout the interaction. So it's all built in right there. And then, which brings us to this next piece, right? Ensure keyboard accessibility. So on this next slide is an example of a okay, thank you. Okay, so this is a screen grab of the Lightning Service Console. All right, it's very complicated. Does anybody use the Lightning Service Console? Yep. This is right. So we have workspace tabs, we have sub tabs, we have a panel on the left side with our list view. We have a phone dialer. What else do we have? 2 open dock composers, right? There's nothing on this page that you cannot do with a keyboard, which is to say everything here is keyboard accessible. So while it may seem like it's daunting to make something this complex accessible for a keyboard-only user, it's absolutely possible, and it exists in Lightning Console. And if you follow the Lightning Design System, or if you use Lightning Components, you'll get all of that. And then the fifth piece is really it's going to be testing and test automation. Right? So, the first one is going to be, confirm that you have full keyboard access. Right? And that doesn't always just mean can I tab through everything, because some components they want you to arrow through them. Some have certain modes, so it's good to know how these components are supposed to work with a keyboard and make sure that it happens. And then beyond that, you can use automation to lock that into place so you don't regress when changes happen elsewhere. Our second step here is to validate. Right? If you have valid HTML, that's the first step to accessible HTML. We recommend the Validity Chrome extension for that. For 3, we're partial to the Axe Accessibility Chrome extension. It's very good at testing your ARIA markup, and it will also check the basics, images with alternative text. It will ensure that your forms are properly labeled. And then, the fourth one is, run a screen reader for your product, right? Learn how to use a screen reader, but use it, right? We recommend, our biggest recommendation is going to be Chrome and NVDA. We find that NVDA is very standards compliant, right? And Chrome as well is the best real combination there. So, yeah, that's it. Think about design. Use Lightning components. When you can't, use the Lightning design system, keyboard accessibility, and test it. Automate everything. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you, Jesse, for those 5 best practices. So just a reminder, we ask you to follow those best practices and join us in this commitment to making Salesforce accessible. A couple of calls to action for those of you in the audience. So the first thing is that we've set up a new Trailblazer community. That's our rebranded success communities. So if you go to bit.ly disability-topics, you'll be taken to our disability topics community, and we're inviting all customers, whether they're admins or developers or end users, anybody with an interest in accessibility to join us there, where we're trying to establish a community. And we want to hear about your experiences using the product and any issues that you see, ideas for improving, and so on. And also, we're really interested in connecting to our customers with disabilities. So if you are an end user with a disability and you're interested in talking to us, we'd like to come and visit you. So please reach out to us on the community, and we will be in touch. And then we're around for the rest of the week. So here are some events you can check out. At the top there, our booth is right over there, just beyond the Quick Start and Camp Design. So if you stop by, you can talk to members of the team. And then a couple of talks which might be of interest. So the Equality Summit happens on Wednesday. In fact, the Equality Day is all day Wednesday. And at 1 o'clock, there's an Equality Summit called Activities Standing Up for Equality. And Haben Germer, who is a very active accessibility campaigner, will be on stage. We recommend going to that. And then soon after that, we're having a discussion forum back here in this room at the Ridge Theatre, where again we'll have the accessibility team and a representative from Ability Force, which is our Ohana group dedicated to accessibility within Salesforce for our employees, there to answer your questions and hear what your experiences have been, both using Salesforce and here at the conference Dreamforce as well. So, thank you everybody. Thank you for listening. And does anybody have any questions at all? I think we have about 1 minute left.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll repeat that out loud. So the question is about the Lightning dashboards in the charts. You're saying that you're unable to interact with them when it's in the small version, but you are able to when it gets into the bigger version. Okay. So when you interact with Lightning charts, when you tab through, before you tab into the chart, there's going to be a button that just appears, and it says Enable Keyboard Accessibility and Screen Reader Access for this chart. And so when you hit that button, you'll then be able to tab through every bar in a bar chart, every dot in a dot chart. But what it also does is, for a screen reader user, it will place into the DOM a hidden table. And so that table is going to have essentially an equivalent information of the chart. So if it's a bar chart, there's going to be an X and Y axis. And so we're going to have a 2-column table that's going to give you that information. And I'll get your information later as well. Any other questions?
One last question. Going. Okay. Well, thank you for coming today. Thank you for listening. enjoy the rest of the conference and drop by our booth anytime this week to get a hands-on demo.
Thank you.